Welcome, everyone, and good afternoon, NCRGEA members and guests. Welcome to today's webinar, Drug Deprescribing, presented by Dr. Delon Canterbury. I am your host today, Daryl Davis Fulmer, and today we will also be joined by Tim O'Connell, NCRGEA's Executive Director, who will share what the association is working on. I want to also welcome Tracy Eubanks as our newest NCRGEA member, and she is providing our technical support. She's our technical expert. Our primary presenter, Dr. Delon Canterbury, the Deprescribing pharmacist, is the founder of GeriatRx, which is a concierge pharmacist service helping caregivers, clinicians, and older adults reduce harmful medication use in older adults. Their mission is to help deprescribe 1 million medications in older adults that may worsen memory, falls, and preventable side effects across the world. Dr. Canterbury's practice has helped families save hundreds of thousands of dollars by helping them to keep older adults out of the hospital and nursing homes, while also keeping loved ones or helping loved ones get back to themselves using genetic testing, comprehensive medication reviews, and advocating with their prescribers. Before we begin our webinar, I want to go over a few items. Each of you has been muted to help ensure the presenters can be heard. The webinar will be recorded. Many of you asked that question, and it will be posted on our YouTube account. We will also send out an email to everyone with a link to our YouTube account and announce it in our social media sites, as well as post it on our webpage. For those of you who sent us questions, we submitted them to Dr. Delon, and many of them will be answered during this presentation. If you think of a question, however, during the presentation, please be sure to use the Q&A button at the bottom of the Zoom page. Dr. Delon will answer and try to respond to you during the webinar, but if not, we will read the questions at the end and he can respond at that time. So without further ado, here's NCRGEA's Executive Director, Tim O'Connell.
Hey, good afternoon, everyone. It's great to have you here. Very excited about Delon's program. I've got to know Delon a little bit at our conferences, and he always has a good crowd around the table. So it's great to be doing this virtually and being able to share this on a broader level. I want to give you a few updates on what we're working on at this time. We get quite a few calls every day asking, what's the legislature doing? And so at this time, quite honestly, not much is going on. There are a few committee meetings. They're going to reconvene the session. I just looked at the calendar. It looks like July 29th, they will be back. But there are a few sort of perfunctory sessions, and that is the, but one second. I believe we're having some errors with the login. Tracy, if you could possibly resend it. Folks are getting an error code is what I've just been handed to me.
Sure. So if you send it to me, I'll send it back out.
Okay. All right. So we're going to work on that at the moment. But we'll go ahead and get the link back out. So why don't we slow it down a little bit, Daryl, if that's okay?
Okay. Mm-hmm.
Let's give Tracy a chance, but it looks like we're getting some folks getting an error message, and I want to make sure folks can get in if we can. So,
okay.
All right. So I will talk a little bit slower here and continue the update. So where they are, again, on July 29th, they'll be back. Folks ask us, of course, what about COLA? What about bonuses? I say they're not done yet. This is what has happened. The governor put in a 3% bonus pension supplement. That's a one-time in his budget. The House put a 2% one-time bonus pension supplement in their budget, and the Senate has not put anything in their budget. The House approved their budget, the Senate approved their budget, but they do not agree on a budget yet. So there is not any adjustments to the budget at this time. So, They do not have to do adjustments to the budget. That is by the state statutes in a short session, but they normally do. So we are working hard. If you got a call to action email from us last week, we are beginning to engage with the Senate on conversations, seeing how we can show them that it is a very smart move to give retirees of North Carolina COLA or a bonus. And then we're also going to be saying to the another call to action will be coming out to the House saying, please stay strong. We appreciate you working on behalf of North Carolina's 350,000 retirees to make a difference in their lives, because we know a lot of you out there are struggling, and we want to make sure that our legislators, the lawmakers, the folks that we elected are aware of the situation and can respond. So look for call to actions. If you're not an email person, that is okay. Living Power is on its way to you. And there's also information on how you can just, good old handwritten note is equally and probably more effective than some of these emails. But just last week, 2,000 of you sent emails to the Senate alone, which is a great response. If you have not seen that, it's in your email box. You still can. And please go ahead and complete that call to action if you can, because we are in the hard work. These are the hard rows right now. So we could use your help, and your voices matter, especially with 65,000 of you out there as members. So the legislation that has been put forward, I'm going to give you some bill numbers. Senate Bill 896 had a 3% COLA bonus, a COLA in it for both state and local. Yes, that is 896. 896 and House Bill 930 are the same bills. They did it, and each one did the same bill, but they have COLA for both state and local. So that's state and local, which has not been seen in some time. There's another bill out there, House Bill 934, that has a 2% increase for state employees in it. Those did not get out of committee, but those bills, because of the timing of them, they are in session, so they can be reviewed. So once you know, there are bills that were written specifically for COLA or bonuses. And what is going on right now is most of the work is being done on the budget bill. And that's what you should keep your eye out for, is, what's going on with the budget bill. Last couple of things here. On Living Power, this is really important. We've got the elections coming up this fall. We have the opportunity to ask the governor candidates and the treasurer candidates some questions specifically related to government retirees. And we've got some good responses back on that. I'm fortunate this week to be able to have conversations with both the treasurer candidates. Had an hour phone call yesterday with one of them, and I've got another one scheduled for tomorrow. So we're just having some good dialogue on some things around retirees, the pensions, and the health system, things like that. So know that we're working hard on that for you as well and looking to the future. So I believe that is the updates. If there's any questions, you can always email me. I have the easiest email. It's Tim, T-I-M, at NCRGEA.com, tim@NCRGEA.com. Feel free to ask me a question. I'd love to get your questions, and I'll be glad to answer them back. So without further ado, Daryl, if you're ready.
Yes, thank you so much, Tim, for your quick update, and see that we sent the email out again to hopefully get a few more people on board. I think it may be working. And so now here's our speaker for today, Dr. Delon Canterbury.
All right. Good afternoon, everyone. And again, thank you all to the NCRGEA team for having me here today. My name is Dr. Delon Canterbury. For those who may not have met me, I am a geriatric pharmacist, and I am the founder of GeriatRx. As mentioned, we are a concierge telehealth medicine service, helping people really get some good clarity on what all those medications may be doing in the body. And so today we're going to talk about how you all can use your lovely neighborhood prescribing pharmacist to help figure out the maze of healthcare and really advocate for when to know which medications are necessary now. And a lot of times we're not having conversations about when we can actually stop medications, right? Most clients who come to us, they're going to the office, to the medical office, they have a concern. And guess what? They're adding a new prescription without really doing a full deep dive on all the other potential issues that there may be. So, one of our skill sets, again, is getting to the nitty gritty of what all medications may be doing, and then truly asking if you need to be on this medicine for life. Because a lot of the times, you don't have to be on certain medications forever with the guidance of your provider, and of course, using lifestyle changes along the way. So today we'll dive into the journey of what all this entails and what this looks like and having your very own specialized pharmacist, especially one who's trained in the world of geriatrics medicine. So, geriatrics, what is this? How did we come to be? What do we do? We are on a mission, as mentioned earlier, to deprescribe or safely remove 1 million medications that were once prescribed before. And the reason is we simply put, don't have specialists to look at the medications and see what may be worsening quality of life for our retirees and for our older adults. In fact, our older adults are the population that have the highest risk of side effects and medical issues and hospital readmissions especially when it comes to medications. And we have studies that tell us that about 60% of these medication related events are preventable. So we are not hitting the mark as a healthcare system in using pharmacists to the top of our license and having ongoing touch points to look at what the medications may be doing for you or your loved one that you're caring for. And so we do this by looking at all the meds, all the over the counters, all of the supplements, everything you're eating and drinking. And we're looking to see what can we tweak or what can we do to reduce that pill burden. And more importantly, what can we do to reduce the associated healthcare costs on being on too many medications? So the higher your medication list, the higher the risk of side effects, the higher the risk of falls, the higher the risk of medications that may worsen memory. And so when we have more conversations with our care team, our providers or PAs, where we're asking, hey, you know what? Do I need to be on all these medications still? Are these extenuating my life? Are they helping me live longer and happier? And if some of those medications may not be, we may have an opportunity to have what we call a deprescribing conversation. So again, I'm Dr. Delon Canterbury. I graduated here from UNC in Chapel Hill in 2014, focusing on geriatric medicine. And so about 80% of all of our medical therapies and treatments generally involve some type of drug or another. But did you know that only 13% of your doctors actually talk with a pharmacist before writing a prescription? And that's a pretty low number. And I think we have way more possibilities to improve upon that. But can you imagine the person who's trained and has the expertise in knowing what the medications are doing in the body generally are the last person people really talk to when it comes to that prescribing process. So it really doesn't hit our doors until you're walking up to your pharmacy, you're waiting in a long line trying to get your refill, or you're in a drive-through. And that's where you finally have that last healthcare professional telling you or consulting you about the medications. Our philosophy is just with geriatrics. We are not a pharmacy. We are not an insurer. We simply are an objective third party resource for people in the community who have a suspicion that there may be something going on with their grandmother, or there may be a reason why a loved one may have been sent to a facility and they don't know where to start. We always think the medications may be the issue first. And until you rule out whether a medication may be causing harm, we may not be doing all we can in helping to advocate for you. And so sadly, in this country, we have about 750 older adults that are sent to the hospital every day because of a medication or a side effect related to that. That's a lot of people, guys. And we have way more opportunities to fix this problem across this country. We have about 275,000 people each year that die in the US, all because of a medication related event. And then unfortunately, this is costing our health system and you, the customer or the patient, tons of money in repeat office visits for something that could have been completely avoided. Additionally, about nearly half of people over 65 are taking at least one prescription that is no longer appropriate. So again, can you imagine how many people on this call may be taking 10, 15, or 20 meds, and we haven't had anyone thoroughly review everything to see if they truly need it? And so we're going to dive into that a bit more today. But let's start a little bit with my humble beginnings, all right? I was actually originally born in Brooklyn to two loving parents who came from the country of Guyana in South America. So they emigrated in the 80s, and then we eventually moved from New York down to Atlanta, Georgia, where I grew up for the most part. All right. So I was the oldest of three. My mom was a teacher, so she also worked for the state. She was a public school teacher over in Atlanta. And my dad is an accountant. And I'm the oldest of three. My brother Devon is pictured here. And that's my sister Dacia with her chubby cheeks. And me in the back just looking awkward because that's how I am. And so I was the awkward, shy kid, always was loving of everyone, but just didn't know how to exemplify that in person. And so as we shifted from New York down to Georgia, we essentially grew up there where my parents still reside. And I was the first one to leave home and move to North Carolina back in 2010 to start my career as a pharmacist. And so, as a pharmacist, I actually resided or was a pharmacy manager in Henderson, North Carolina. So, I don't know if anybody's from the Henderson, Oxford area, but there was only one Walgreens in Henderson, and that used to be my store. All right. So, I used to work there. That's where I first cut my teeth as a pharmacy manager back in 2014, 2015. And I did that for about 3 years and I loved it. I loved being in the community. I really enjoyed most getting to know my patients. And of course, more importantly, being in the community, like being with students, being with thriving minds. So this is a couple of pictures of me doing an HIV AIDS walk on the far right. And then we did a career day, I believe, at Vance County Middle School, one of the middle schools there, just helping kids understand what over-the-counter medications may mean and what it looks like to have, well, a pharmacy actually help you figure out how to choose the right cough and cold medicines or what to do when you have certain types of pain. And this is the stuff that truly made me tick as a clinician. I enjoyed that one-on-one contact and having people leaving empowered. But I'll be honest with you guys, I wasn't as those moments as great as they were. They just simply weren't the everyday norm in the business of pharmacy. The business of pharmacy generally is around how can we get you to take more pills? How can we get you to take and get more shots? And how can we do all these other services that lead to, unfortunately, the bottom line, which may conflict with actual quality patient care. And so once I got privy to that world of healthcare and business here, I got a bit angry. I got honestly, frankly, a bit depressed and frustrated with the way our health system was designed. And what I kept seeing at my pharmacy bench were older adults, 60, 70-year-olds, retirees who are unfortunately struggling to just make ends meet. They can barely afford transportation and let alone afford the medication that they're coming to buy from us. And I got a bit tired of having people choose between whether I'm going to eat tonight or if I'm going to pay for this next copay for these expensive eye drops. And these are people who worked all their damn lives and done all they're supposed to do. And yet the system, I feel, is betraying them. So I got a bit angry with that and felt there's got to be a different way we can approach healing and we can approach helping people navigate the medication list. So some of you may have seen me previously, especially during COVID. I've been very vocal in addressing some of the misinformation around the COVID vaccinations. And so I ended up doing a lot of public speaking during the outbreak to local churches, town halls, the news. We were featured on PBS NewsHour a couple of times discussing COVID updates. But one that really stuck out to me was being able to serve on the task force for the African American COVID task force in Durham. And it was a coalition of clinicians from Duke and UNC and community-based organizations who partnered together to drive some of these town halls to discuss vaccine hesitancy and address how can we get the communities that need it most to get those vaccines that we all are taking advantage of today. So after seeing the world of pharmacy in Henderson and jumping around, getting promotions and playing the game a little bit, again, it wasn't fulfilling the Delon that needed to be the guy you guys see today. And so what did I do after my 5-year stint with Walgreens? I ended up stepping down from that. I got very involved with nonprofit organizations and even did a position shift and ended up working as a poison control pharmacist for the state. And so while working with senior pharmacists and Community Health Coalition, I took the time to just focus on what I liked most. And as a pharmacist, for me, it was connecting with people, it was helping families out in need, it was being able to communicate complex issues into a very succinct, easy to practical way. And that's something that is a gift that I feel a lot of us pharmacists have, but aren't always in the setting to express it. And so in 2020, I ended up creating my company today that you see, GeriatRx. And we focus especially again on advocating for families who may be worried about their loved ones taking too many medications. So why does this mean so much to me? Apart from seeing what I saw in the community, I also learned that I did not really know much about geriatric medicine. Like, what is geriatrics? The study of older adults or people, I guess, defined by people at 65 and up. But I learned quickly that I simply did not learn what medications may cause problems for someone who's 90 versus someone who is 35 years old. You see, a lot of the medications we use today that were developed were studied primarily in healthy young individuals. But that same medication may work completely differently if I'm 80 years old, or I may have a kidney malfunction or liver malfunction, or simply put, just the body as it ages does not respond the same way as the medications may have before. And in understanding that, I found that there were so many interactions I was missing because I wasn't thinking like a geriatrician. And so that inspired me to get a board certification in geriatric pharmacy and truly understand the complexities of managing patients that may be frail. But why this hits home so much for me is because my grandmother had mild dementia. And in her care, she received a medication that actually worsened all of her dementia symptoms. She was more irritable. She was trying to leave and escape the home. She was forgetting us. She was blanking on, of course, names and personalities in the home. She frankly was just not the person that we knew who was jovial and laughing. And eventually, my mom's frustration while she was refilling a prescription found out at her dismay that over 4 or 5 months of us moving my grandmother from New York all the way back to Atlanta and having two full-time parents trying to raise not only 3 kids, but also send them through college and take care of Granny, Mildred, which was her name. It was very difficult. It was extremely difficult. And we found out at my mom's surprise that it was actually one medication that caused Mildred to decline. It was just one prescription, one medication that we trusted and refilled time and time again, assuming this would help in her care. And so what happened was she received a medication that actually has an FDA black box warning stating that this medication should not be used with people with dementia because it may increase the risk of death. Increase the risk of death. So, why are we prescribing something that increases the risk of death in an older woman? And I was furious. And I wasn't a pharmacist just yet when this happened. But once we were able to find out what the cause was, that pharmacist advocated for my family and got the medication stopped. And thankfully, our grandma Mildred returned back to her normal self over a couple of weeks. So much so that we were able to send her back to that nursing facility and live happily the rest of her years to see the age of 90. So, can you imagine how much headache my family has gone through, how much time and energy was spent, how much money was spent, where the entire time of us moving her, had a pharmacist been there to do a thorough review, we could have gotten this stopped much sooner. We would have saved a lot more money, and she would have simply put, not be put in harm's way. And it was a preventable medication error. But this happens time and time and time again with a lot of our older adults today, especially in this country. And so that's why I've created geriatrics, is to be that voice for you, to be that voice for your family, and to be that advocate in times of need. And so our services are functionally around the concept of asking about the medication list, doing a comprehensive medication review. We are 24/7 accessible to you and your family if you have concerns about your loved ones. And we also provide genetic testing, which is a new wave of medicine where we're using what your body does and how your body responds to medicines before we write something for you to take, where traditionally we're just kind of, all right, you got an issue, we're going to give you this med and we hope it works. But why do that when we can be way more precise by getting a genetic test to tell you how you would respond to a medication before you even take it? So that's a key part of our workups for clients, is getting you genetically tested and seeing how we can support you. So for those who may not have heard of the term, deprescribing is becoming a bit more recently used in the literature, but essentially we have prescribing and deprescribing. And deprescribing is the supervised and safe removal of medications that may not be working anymore for you. All right. So again, the key word is supervised. I am by no means telling anyone to get on this call and just stop all they're taking because, well, I heard Delon say this. All right. That's not the message for today. The message is, have you had a conversation about each and everything on your medication list? And is it truly necessary for you or your loved one? So deprescribing can be done by you, the patient, the caregiver. But ultimately, we have to loop in the provider who may have written the script, and you may want to ask your local pharmacist if truly this is necessary now. And so there are a couple of words in here that maybe throw around, like polypharmacy and overprescribing. But ultimately, we define people who may be having polypharmacy as someone who may be taking 5 or more medications. All right. And there's some mixed response on how people define it. But ultimately, the goal is, are you on less than 5? If you are on less than 5, excellent. And I'm talking about all prescriptions, over the counters, and herbal supplements. So that's my goal when I work with families, is what can I do to get you to less than 5? Because statistically, we know that if it's more than 5, or even in some cases more than 10, there's a higher risk of potential harm. And so that's what we're trying to address. And so a lot of times people are in crisis and people need help. And so it's really until it's really in front of your face is when we start taking action. And so to avoid that headache, we provide 24/7 access to our clients. We have a membership model. And essentially you call us and we can give you advice or tips around managing care in real time. All right. As mentioned, we provide genetic testing and we also advocate for you. So you as a caregiver or you as a family member can know which medications to hone in on, or at least ask questions on with your next doctor's visit. So in work with tons of patients in the last 5 years, our testimonies honestly speak for themselves. We've got plenty of families who've been able to remove a medication that was no longer serving them. We've helped families get on discount savings cards to help with payments for certain prescriptions. We're basically getting an unhinged pharmacist without the wait that you see at a pharmacy counter. We've helped people stop from falls, but more importantly, we've helped a family member who was based in Clayton, who was a 70-year-old woman taking 36 medications. All right. 36 medications, which is wild. I can barely take two. And I'm talking about a multivitamin, but this woman was taking 36. And so she was presenting just like my grandmother Mildred. She had all the same symptoms and side effects, and we were able to eventually get her taken off of those meds down to just 8 prescriptions over 2 months. All right. If you were to ask me how many meds is she on today, she is only on 3 medications. All right. So we went from 36 to 3, all right, in just the past 2 years. So imagine the impact that this has had on that family who was actually going to put her in a nursing home, but now they don't have to spend $7,000 to $11,000 a month just to keep her in a memory care unit because we were able to keep them from that nursing home placement. That, my friends, is the power of a deprescribing pharmacist. But guess what? You don't need a pharmacist. You just need to learn how to ask the right questions with your providers to get this going. And so, again, that's why we all need a pharmacist. So let's dive into a recent case that came to our table. We've got a patient who came in who's 78 years old. She's finding that she's extremely fatigued. It's been worsening over the past 2 years. She just moved here from California. She's having to sleep about 10 to 12 hours a day, but she still wakes up very, very tired. She's had worsening fatigue, decreased energy, and just doesn't feel like herself. She's also gained a good bit of weight while she's here, and she feels she hasn't had a chance to have as much organic and healthy foods as she is used to. So just a quick moment. I would love for anyone in the chat to mention, if you felt like this or if there was a time you've experienced side effects or concerns or you think it's the medicine, how have you approached that? How have you sent a message to your provider if you have? Do you go about your day and just kind of let's see what happens, or do you find help from a local pharmacist or a clinician who can give you any answers in real time? But for those of you who may be caregivers who are honestly tired of trying to force your loved one to take all these meds, it may be time to have a medication review by your pharmacist or yours truly. This is a real issue in what I'm seeing in our communities because we're not having healthy conversations about when to stop a medication. So in preparation for this, we had a lot of questions that were concerned about supplements and herbals and how do they interact and how do I choose the right product. So I'm going to share with you all a brief little video done by the PBS News that can give you some insights when I inform patients on how to be strong stewards and avoid some of the gimmicks that are out there in the over-the-counter space.
Next, NewsHour correspondent Paul Salmon on a project aimed at determining what's really in herbal supplements.
Though we rarely do consumer stories, at the New York Botanical Garden not long ago, we happened on one we just couldn't resist. That in one of America's fastest growing and least regulated industries, medicinal herbs, what you see may not be what you get. The garden was abound with poet Emily Dickinson's flowers, but we were mainly there because of a woodland plant known variously as bugbane, snake root, or black cohosh, an herb to treat the symptoms of menopause that has joined ginkgo and ginseng as among America's dietary supplement bestsellers.
I've heard that it's really good with mood swings and with stress. And I also found out that you could use it for arthritic inflammation.
I was amazed that 35% of women that I was seeing as a physician
were using these products.
New York gynecologist David Baker says he was even more surprised when he checked the literature on government-funded alternative health research.
Some of the studies showed that when women used black cohosh versus placebo, they did get relief from their menopausal symptoms, but many other studies showed there were no effects whatsoever. In addition, reports in the literature of severe liver damage, muscle damage, and vein and artery damage from the use of black cohosh. And the summary of those articles suggests it's not from black cohosh, but from adulteration of black cohosh.
And how did you react to the apparent contradiction?
I started to think, what were they really using?
Well, I think if you buy it from a reputable store or if you buy a reputable label, you hope that the product is what you're getting.
But that might not always be the case. Black cohosh is a species in a whole family of plants, many of which look alike and can confuse even experts. A far cry from, say, the putative memory aid, the herb ginkgo biloba.
There's not any plant out there that looks like a ginkgo. A ginkgo is a ginkgo is a ginkgo.
But, says botanist Dennis Stevenson,
black cohosh is one of these plants that's collected in the wild. You know, like if I'm not a trained botanist, I go out, oh, it looks like cohosh, I'll get a bunch of it and sell it to the supplier, and we're all happy.
That sounds rather casual.
Well, it is, but these kinds of mistakes can happen fairly easily.
To remedy cases of mistaken identity, Stevenson is working on a quick and easy way to identify plants genetically. Instead of mapping all of an organism's DNA, he and his colleagues are zeroing in on single genes.
We call it DNA barcoding because we sort of liken that to the barcode we see in the stores as a unique signature for a product.
Just 4 amino acids, call letters A, G, C, and T, are the building blocks of all life. But every species has at least one unique DNA sequence.
If I found that signature, I would know I had that species as distinct from all other species on the face of the earth.
Now, DNA barcoding has been getting some high-profile press of late. A couple of years ago, 2 high school students used it to uncover the fishy truth about New York's sushi.
One of the most striking results was we had something labeled as white tuna, and it was actually Mozambique tilapia.
Kate Stokel was inspired to do the project by her dad, a molecular biologist.
Half of the restaurants, 2 of 4 restaurants, and 6 of 10 grocery stores sold 1 or more items that were mislabeled.
Inspired by SushiGate, Stevenson looked into herbal tea.
Almost all the herbal teas, to have enough in the little packet, have a filler.
Filler?
Yes.
You mean like hamburger helper?
Right. It ends up the filler is chamomile.
Chamomile?
Yes. And it's kind of interesting to know that because this filler isn't listed on the box. In other instances, the fillers were grass, or the whole tea sample was just grass.
Grass like the grows.
Grass like mowing your lawn, right, not the other grass.
But Stevenson soon moved beyond tea.
We wanted to build a large database that would cover the 1,000 or so species used in dietary supplements.
This is a $25 billion industry, according to Baker, famous for loose regulation. So Stevenson and Baker agreed to collaborate and start with
a bunch of this.
Black cohosh. They sliced and diced, eye of bugbane, toe of snake root, if you will, and eventually they came up with a barcode. Then they went shopping.
We went on the internet, we ran around New York and Long Island and just walked into stores and got 26 different black cohosh.
Or at least 26 different preparations labeled as distinct black cohosh brands. All were subjected to the barcoding test.
So 26 samples, and the results?
30% had no black cohosh at all.
None?
None.
Baker did the tests anonymously, looking for general, non-specific results. And what he found could explain the variation in the research outcomes, he says. But Dr. Jack Killen, of the agency that funded the government's black cohosh tests, says he's sure his samples were authentic.
So I think we have a great deal of confidence that the variability that we see in the research is not attributable to sometimes the black cohosh is there and sometimes it isn't.
At this point, we decided to buy our own samples and have them tested. Not just black cohosh, but a couple of other best-selling herbs, ginkgo and ginseng, both of which Stevenson's lab had already DNA barcoded. We bought only 4 samples of ginkgo biloba, that supposed aid for, what was it again? Oh yeah, memory, and 4 samples of ginseng, thought to enhance other sorts of performance.
Then there's one species, the North American species, quintifolia, Panax quintifolia, that is the preferred ginseng around the world.
Because it's supposed to have aphrodisiac powers.
The most effective.
Admittedly, our sample size was too small to be statistically significant. But surely all the ginkgo would be ginkgo, ginseng, ginseng, and the lab agreed to do the test, so why not? The results, also reported anonymously, get this, only 2 of our 4 ginseng samples seemed to contain ginseng, and even that was the Asian species, not the preferred North American variety. The other 2 contained some complex mixture of DNA, none of which could be confirmed as ginseng. The 4 supposed samples of the ubiquitous, unmistakable ginkgo tree, one was legit, another an exact DNA match for common rice, the third a complex mixture of DNA, none of which, the lab report said, resembled ginkgo biloba DNA, and the 4th contained no plant DNA at all. Our black cohosh samples did better. 7 out of 8 did contain the plant, but 1 did not. Of 16 supplements, then, bought at random from major retailers in the Washington, D.C. area, 6 were suspect or outright frauds, prompting one last question for Dr. Baker.
So dietary supplements are the Wild West of self-medication.
That is correct.
A sobering thought, especially as the role of government regulation again becomes a matter of national debate.
Paul's reporting is supported by a grant from the Sloan Foundation, which also funds some DNA barcoding research.
All right, all right. Yeah, appreciate your attention with that. So yeah, I'm just curious for those paying attention, what were some thoughts or initial impressions in seeing some of this information come to you? And love it if you throw something in the chat just so I could see what people are thinking. But they're absolutely spot on. The entire market in that industry is unregulated. And so there are some tips that we can give you today so you can figure out which ones are high quality products. But there is unfortunately a world of scamming and fraud. So we'll talk more about that. So back to our patient, okay? So she presented, and this is a little bit of a history. She's got a little bit of diabetes, pre-diabetes, high cholesterol, some tiredness we know. Pulmonary embolism is a history of hers, and hypothyroidism or low thyroid. She's on 4 prescriptions chronically. So she's on an injection for cholesterol. She's got thyroid meds. She's on a blood thinner, Eliquis, and she's on metformin to help with pre-diabetes. Now, here's the kicker. Here's what we're talking about. She's also on a lot of supplements, and I don't mean a lot. She had close to 45 different supplements that she was taking, and all really happened over time. I mean, she would hear a couple good things about 1 or 2 products. She'd take them, she'd try them, and she'd keep them on. And then she hears something new in 6 to 8 months. She tries that, takes it on. And so it ended up compounding over time that she ended up on, well, about 45 meds. And frankly, a lot of it was just simply believing that these were helping her. There really wasn't an anecdotal evidence or an actual improvement. It was just, it looked good. It seemed like it had a quality product, or I've heard such and such from a friend and they told me to check out this product, so I bought it. And trust me, I've got a mom, she does this all day, right? And she doesn't even ask me what I should consider taking, mom, son, you know how that goes. But ultimately, if you hear from your friend, you're going to want to try that out. So, and that's what a lot of this industry is getting the good marketing out there, a little bit of catchy phrases and feel young again, feel like yourself, all those things will come into play. But you have to do your due diligence And so, as much as I firmly believe in some of these herbal products and the world of alternative healing, unfortunately, we simply just have a lot of people out there who are just taking advantage of you, who don't even market what's in the product and they can't attest to it. And again, for the most part, a lot of these are not rigorously studied. So I'm not at all against the use of herbals. I am against the industry, which essentially feeds people to believe they need all of these single products. And so our client, 45 supplements, I didn't put everything on there, but a lot of them were actually having some pretty significant interactions. And so on average, took the effort to compile exactly what she's paying, or at least giving a ballpark of what she's paying on a monthly basis. She's paying close to $500 to $800 a month on just supplements alone. Okay. So we looked up each product she gave us, we gave her a price range, and we were able to determine that this is about how much she's spending. So in a year, at minimum, at minimum, she's spending close to $6,000 on just supplements, and she still isn't feeling her best self. She still has fatigue, you know? So to me, as a clinical pharmacist, that is a huge problem. If you're not even managing the symptoms and we're just adding on and you're spending more money, that's gonna, well, worsen your quality of life and your healthy aging. And my job is to make sure you're aging healthily and in retirement and not spending exorbitant amounts of money. And so for a fraction of that cost, she actually was able to get a review with us, and we were able to come up with a plan to help her stop a lot of these medications and maybe keep 3 or 5 core ones, because really most people need a multivitamin, maybe some vitamin D, B complex isn't bad at all. But frankly, a lot of your diet and health comes from what you eat. Yes, we hear time and time again, but you really are what you eat. And getting movement and getting food, good, healthy food, is the key to avoiding a long prescription list. All right. So looking at all these products, yes, again, they sound good. It'll help with memory, help with stamina, help with energy. But that wasn't the case for our patient. So here are some of the interactions that we found in just one single consultation. All right. She was taking an herbal product that was the exact same structure as the metformin, which is her diabetic or pre-diabetic medication. All right. So we found a duplicate therapy. We also found that she was taking a lot of ashwagandha, a very popular product out on the market today. Ashwagandha is one of those what we call adaptogens. So it's also managing the stress hormone that we release when we are stressed or exercising. But a lot of the ashwagandha we found was actually interacting with her thyroid medication. Okay. She also was taking excessively high doses of omega-3s, and extremely high doses of omega-3s can actually interact with blood thinners, as omega-3s at a very high dose have been shown to increase bleed risk. She also had multiple products that had multiple ingredients of the exact same thing. So I will reiterate, you can overdose on herbal supplements. You can overdose on vitamins. And having too high of a vitamin A, D, E, or K can actually lead to death or fatality. So it's important to look really keenly on what's on the back of that prescription bottle, or have a specialist look at this for you, because having too much of this can cause way more harm than good. All right. She also was on way too many B vitamins. And if you have too many of a certain B vitamin, it can actually falsely positively show that you have an elevated thyroid hormone. Okay. Another note to be made. And we also found that there were some herbal genetic drug interactions as well. So again, this was just from one consultation with yours truly, who specializes in understanding herbal medicines and medicines and how they work in an older person's body. All right. So I'm more of a proponent on How can we switch your supplements or nutrients to what can you possibly eat? All right. One thing to look out for when you're buying products is to look for this USP seal of quality assurance. This is how you know that the US Pharmacopoeia, which is a third party that makes sure that whoever made your product is doing it in a controlled environment and that it's free from heavy metals, bacteria, or any adulterants. All right. If you see this, check out consumerlab.com. You can actually search their drug database and look for products, and they also do quality testing for patients in need as well. Anything that sounds too good to be true for a supplement is likely a scam or a gimmick, all right? If it's too good to be true, just assume it is. And things that are, say, like new discovery or breakthrough or ancient remedy, all those products should be given with a grain of salt as, again, they're intended to market, all right? So at a fraction of the cost of what this patient spends, she's spending nearly a minimum 6,000 a year, right? We charge significantly less to do a review. But in doing so, we're looking to help her get her life back, and we're looking to personalize her care by listening to her needs, okay? So working with us, we'll be able to work with your providers and give an objective opinion on what medications we can or can't stop. So in our case, we ended up advising her to consider stopping all herbal supplements. We want to reassess her cholesterol. We want to make sure she's getting active and staying moving. We also want to make sure we're reassessing her mood. And we also wanted her to ask for an expanded thyroid panel. Not many people know about that. And so you have to specifically ask if you have a thyroid issue and it comes up as normal, but you still feel groggy or not your full self. Having an expanded thyroid panel can give better details if your body may have antibodies against your thyroid. So there are other specific markers and tests that we have out there that we can check out on your behalf. So we also determined the source of her stroke, and hers was an unprovoked cause. We thought it was best to keep her on the Eliquis based on how she had her first pulmonary embolism. All right. But this is just one example. You've got tons of examples like this where patients come, they don't know what's going on, and we can give you some good clarity on what to do next using lifestyle, holistic, dietary approaches. And so with that, I want to thank you all for your attention and leave the room for any questions or concerns.
All right.
So much, Dr. Delon. This is certainly information that we needed, and we appreciate that you took the time to be with us today and to put this together. Right now, we have a few more moments for questions. Tim, do you see any that?
Yeah, actually, I've got some good ones, and I want the answers too, Delon. So this is good.
Yeah.
All right. So first question, you touched upon this, and the question is from Rebecca. She says, are vitamins such as A, B, and D, et cetera, more regulated? And second part question, and are gummy type vitamins as effective as regular pill type vitamins?
Great questions. No, the answer is no. The entire industry generally, if it's not requiring a prescription, there really isn't much regulation at all. So that's why when we mention looking for a special label that has like USP on it or consumer labs, those are third-party testers who look at their product, actually analyze to see if it's what is in the product name. Now, I'm not saying every product that doesn't have that is necessarily, a bad product, but they have not, at least to my standard, have not proven that it was made in a safe environment that's going to be effective, which we saw earlier. So I wouldn't say they're more regulated. And regarding gummies, gummies may absorb a little bit better, but you want to get down to the nitty-gritty of, are you getting your nutritional value that you need in a day? And some gummies, they don't have iron for the most part. You can't put iron in a gummy. So if you need iron, you're not going to find that way. It is more effective to absorb it, but I wouldn't say it's better than a regular vitamin that's a pill form. Great question.
Okay, good. Next question is there a directory to use to ensure we are using a certified geriatric pharmacist?
Yeah, great question. So I'm a part of an organization called the American Society of Consultant Pharmacists. It's essentially a long word for geriatric pharmacists, and they have a directory there. So you can check out asp.org, I believe, and you're able to look up and see who's in your neighborhood that might be a geriatric pharmacist. I'm gonna tell you this though. Only 1% of all pharmacists are geriatric pharmacists. Okay. So there's about 300,000 pharmacists, only 1% are even geriatric trained. So it may be a hard find, but again, I'm here for you. Or if you want a referral for someone near to you, I'm happy to do that as well.
Okay. Another question. This is from Jean. How much vitamin B3 should a senior take daily?
That's a good question. I would have to just do a quick search because ultimately we're looking at just your daily nutritional value intake, and that's kind of the same regimen from the nutritional guidelines that we follow. On a cursory look, it looks as though for vitamin B3, which is niacin, for most adults, you want between 14 and 20 milligrams a day. All right. So that's for most adults. If you're deficient in something, you may need to, take more or take it longer.
Okay. And next question. Got a few friends in this category. When are statins needed?
Yeah, a lot of people are on statins, and it's an interesting topic. All right. So generally, we talk about statins when people have had a heart attack or a stroke, or any type of cardiovascular event. Okay. So that's generally when we're thinking statins, but also they're used to generally lower cholesterol. And a lot of those issues come up when we have gunk in our arteries that clog, and that leads to these events. The problem I find is that we kind of knee jerk to everyone needs to be on a statin just because you may have diabetes, So if you have some of those more poignant or severe conditions, statins can definitely help control your numbers and have been proven to increase your life because they just reduce that risk of heart attack and stroke. But there are also times where you may not need it anymore. And maybe your risk is very low, and maybe you already have a healthy lifestyle, or maybe your cholesterol is so well controlled that your risk of really having an event is very, very small. So that's a discussion that I think on a case by case basis, you should generally assess depending on your situation with your provider, because frankly, a lot of my patients just don't always tolerate statins. And there's also a time where you just don't always need it forever. So those are 2 points to note when it comes to statins, especially if you have any type of muscle pain or knee pain from it or any side effects, let that be known too.
Okay. Here's one from Pam. She just says, I take supplements at the direction of my doctor, type and dose. I'll start checking for the USP label. And
Sure.
Any other suggestions to keep me safe?
Yeah, it's always good. Well, I think it depends on, of course, what supplements, but generally, if you're eating an awesome diet, and I know that's already hard as it is, but trying to get some good healthy foods and just going for a walk every day can save you from a heart attack. And so the people I find who have the most success are the ones who are active, who are socially engaged, have friends to rely on, who have like an accountability buddy to go on walks with. To me, it's all about your food and movement. So if you're maintaining any of those or starting to, kudos, you're on the right track. What I find with supplements, and I think it's great to take, a multivitamin or whatever is needed, but we kind of think this is the end all be all. And we also neglect that some of these supplements can interact with prescriptions. So as long as you're having a healthy convo about the expectations of the timeline of benefit for the medicine and the necessity, then you're good to go. But I would say, check for that USP label, check out consumer labs, make sure you're getting a high quality product. Don't just assume everything on Amazon is a quality product. That's not the case. You have to know where the vendor is coming from. You have to know the source of the product. So,
Very good. And this is from.
We may only have time for one question.
Okay. Okay. Okay.
A more
then
short.
A short one. Okay. Well,
Yes.
back on statins because it's a hot topic. So this is from Lisa. How do you know when you no longer need statins?
it's a variable response. It really depends. So I like to rule out, I like to see, did they have a heart attack or stroke in the past at all? If there's anything remotely close to that or an embolism. And if they haven't had anything like that, then I'm like, okay, So are you using this just to lower cholesterol, or are you using this to prevent an event? And some people are on it to prevent an issue, and some people are on it to lower cholesterol. But okay, if your cholesterol is now lowered and you don't have any other issues, do you still need it for the rest of your life? And the answer is probably not, right? Now, it depends if you get familial hypercholesterolemia or whatever. But for the most part, if you're maintaining whatever you're doing, yeah, you expect it to rise a little bit. But as long as your numbers are, for the most part, below 200, you don't have to be on a statin for the rest of your life. All right. So again, it's more of a risk benefit analysis of what's the lifetime benefit of me being on this versus what's the chances of me having another heart attack or stroke, if that's the case. And so just so you know, we're not treating numbers anymore. We've stopped that. We're more so treating your risk of having an event. Okay. So it's not a number anymore. So that's a good conversation to have if you're just treating a number.
Thank you so much, Dr. Delon. We really appreciate this. So for the audience, if there are any additional questions, Tracy put it in the chat, my email address. Please reach out to me at daryl@ncrgea.com, and I'll get the questions to our presenter and reply back to you. So I have a couple of items to mention this afternoon. Don't forget to complete the survey we will be sending you later this week. And again, it's quick and easy to complete, and we will need our responses by Monday. Before we leave, note that our next Lunch and Learn webinar will be held on August 14th from 12:30 to 1:30, and it will be presented by our benefits partner, AMBA. All of you have heard of AMBA, and entitled AMBA Passports. You will learn more about how to access more incredible benefits. Our presenter will be John Green. So thank you again. Thank you, Dr. Lon. Thank you, Tim. Thank you, Tracy, for joining us this afternoon. And as always, the association stands ready to assist you in your retirement. Have a good afternoon. Bye-bye.
You guys.